So we've talked about it a couple times on the show. Tyreek Hill has been indefinitely suspended from the Kansas City Chiefs with an ongoing investigation going into him abusing his child, basically breaking his arm, along with abusing his wife as well. Now, we've talked about it a couple of times. We'll talk about it again because there is a lot more information that has come out since then. So, Michael, what all do we have?
Well, after we talked about the Hill situation a couple weeks ago before we did the draft specials, we mentioned that there was going to be no charges brought forth and, other things that was going on. The NFL's secrecy revolving around this case has been unnerving to me, at least in the sense of what punishment could be coming Tyreek Hill's way. But literally less than 24 hours after the last time we talked about it, a voice recording came out of Tyreek Hill being extremely aggressive towards his wife, and she mentions that his son says daddy did it, and then his response is, and this is graphic so I apologize ahead of time, is he says daddy did it and he's scared of you, and his response, Tyreek's response, was, and you should be scared of me too, bitch. Again, apologize for the language, but that's the way it worked. So after that happened, less than 12 hours after that audio was released, the DA in the area reopened the case on Tyreek Hill. And a week later, the Kansas City Chiefs sent Tyreek Hill home from the facilities and barred him from team organizations and activities. Since then, there's been some text messages that clearly look staged. I don't know anybody that talks like that that has come out. Supposedly, it now looks like Crystal, the wife, is sort of kind of recanting a little bit and trying to protect Tyreek. I don't know if it's because she's afraid of him, afraid of losing the money, afraid of whatever it may be.
He's been sitting home. If there was nothing stopping him, honestly, he could be doing something.
I don't know what Crystal's deal is here. I don't know if this is one of those Stockholm syndrome type things where a lot of, where a lot of abused, people that are abused, they end up, trying to protect, over time.
Because they think they're in love with them.
Yeah. I don't know what this is. To me, at this particular point in time, the Chiefs have made the right move. They haven't released him yet. I do fully suspect that before the season starts, Tyreek Hill will be released from the Chiefs. I do suspect that he will be suspended pretty much indefinitely. I don't know if any charges will be brought forth. It sounds like he's gearing up to be charged. It sounds like his lawyers are gearing up to be charged, and they're trying to get out ahead of it. There's a letter that his lawyers produced that obviously were trying to paint Tyreek Hill in a good light and his, remorsefulness and whatever. But that audio tape is pretty damning.
That's damning.
If you haven't heard this whole videotape, I would suggest going to listen to it. Just be forewarned that it can be kind of sickening. Especially considering the fact that this involves a 3-year-old child. It was come out that Crystal came out and verbally admitted that Tyreek punches, his 3-year-old in the chest. Supposedly that's him playing superheroes, according to the lawyer's letter. He does discipline with a switch, which we already know has gotten Adrian Peterson suspended for over a year. Not in any legal trouble, but definitely some kind of trouble with the league. So I don't know. Tyreek Hill's kid ended up with a broken arm, and then this stuff came out. It's not a good look for Tyreek. Honestly, I don't think he should ever play down again in the NFL. I don't think he deserves to.
I mean, it's the truth, but I'm looking at this and Crystal coming back now and being like, "Oh no, he didn't do it," and so she's trying to recant and defend him. In my eyes, there's something going on there, and I think it needs to be investigated.
She should be charged.
Oh yes,
she should be charged, Kevin. She should be charged now with child abuse in her own right.
Yeah.
There is no mother on this planet that should be protecting somebody abusing their kid physically, sexually, mentally, emotionally, on any level. That a 3-year-old kid, it should never, ever, ever happen on any planet. And the fact that she's now trying to protect him in any which way, shape, or form should automatically lead to charges brought forth to him, and that kid to her, and that kid should never be put back in either one of their custodies ever again.
Exactly. The only way that it gets changed is if it comes out that he went, after getting barred and losing everything with the Chiefs, went home and started doing more. That's the only way it would be acceptable, is if he physically did something to make her feel like she needed to defend to make sure nothing else bad happened.
From what I understand, they can't be anywhere near each other right now.
All right, then yeah. There's
from what I understand. Now again, I don't know the inner workings of this case. I'm not working this case. I'm not there. But from what I've heard and understood is they can't be near each other, and the kid is definitely not going back into their custody anytime soon. But it does sound like Tyreek is planning on having charges brought forth to him, because in some of the text messages that were released, he does mention that he is expected to be charged with child abuse or neglect or both in this situation.
Honestly, both. Double charge him. I don't care.
At this point in time, they both need to be arrested and charged.
Yeah, I mean, she's defending him now after all this.
I understand that he may, I don't know how Crystal feels as far as her internal, self-esteem and self-worth is, what that is for her. But, she stayed with him after he choked her while she was pregnant. It tells me that she probably doesn't have a lot of self-worth for herself, that she's not feeling very, confident in her own, body. And I understand that that's not always the case, and I don't want to offend anybody when I say that, but the fact that she's out here trying to, he was investigated twice inside 6 weeks. He was on the first report. He wasn't on the second report because supposedly he wasn't there. And then it came back that he actually may have been present when the arm was broken.
All right.
So now his name is on the report.
Real quick here. The audio tape, all right, was released by, I believe, the friend of the wife or the friend of the baby mama or whatever her relationship is to Hill. I don't know whether they're married or not, but I believe it's the friend of hers, her girlfriend, that released this tape. And the original story was if she was going to get in trouble and to go to jail, Mrs. Hill or whatever, the young boy's mother, then please release this tape. I got him on tape saying this stuff, and this would probably get me out of trouble and pretty much put it all on him. So I don't really follow stories like this. Truly, I read Good News. I'm a big fan of the goodnewsnetwork.org. They only write good news. I'm like one of these weird guys that never watch the news. I only like happy, uplifting things. But, from here and there, obviously stories like this get driven up my keister, and I have to look like a car wreck on the highway, right? So all I know is that there have been circumstances like Ray Rice's fiance. We saw what he did to her in the elevator, and man, I wouldn't want to catch that punch. And I used to box. Okay, that one looked like it hit her pretty hard, but lo and behold, when they wouldn't let him play anymore, here they are holding hands, and she's got a big old diamond on her hand, and then we're good. We've been getting along.
But John, to just interject in there, and sorry to interrupt you, but the Ray Rice situation, he has no history. Okay. Tyreek Hill has literally had a history. A completely different situation. And I'm not defending Ray Rice by any means, because he did, but he's never had an incident beforehand. He never had an incident afterhand.
Okay,
Tyreek Hill's had multiple instances. Is
what I was relating this into, right? So let's not. Maybe Ray Rice is a bad example. Let's take a person like Britney Spears, right? Went through Kevin Federline and Eminem, and all that. And I mean, these are guys that are known hotheads that I don't know what their criminal records are. I don't really care, but they don't strike me as, nice little altar boys that used to come clean my gutters, way back in the day in the cul-de-sac of the Grand High suburbs with fancy white fences. You know what I mean? These are roughneck looking dudes, yet they seem to have a way of controlling their women, and there's usually, money involved. They've got a lot more commas in their bank accounts than you or I. So, it could be a money thing. It could be a saving face thing. It could be a sincere fear. We never really know. What I try to keep in mind is that these athletes, okay, they're young guys. They've never really gone to the grocery store and shopped for themselves before. They never had to cut off $10 or $20, earn some money. These guys were handed hundreds of thousands of dollars and upwards of millions of dollars at an age of early 20s, and they don't even know how to act when they're broke. What makes us think they know how to act with a bunch of commas in their bank account?
Well, I understand that, John, but it doesn't. The fact of the matter is this is a multiple instance situation. I mean, this is literally twice inside 6 weeks that he's been investigated for child neglect and child abuse. It's an ongoing history back to college. I mean, the Chiefs had to get special permission just to draft him in the 6th round because he was on probation.
Yeah,
I'm not a recurring situation for that.
I'm not condoning his actions, nor am I condoning this incident or
I'm not saying you are,
previous ones. I'm just saying, hey man, this is a crazy world. Who knows what the true intentions of the child's mother was? What I can tell you is, after having 4 children, okay, I've had 4. And I thank God, above high and all that all 4 of them have managed to relatively stay healthy their whole lives. A small kid's bone at 3 years old is hard to break because bones aren't really fully developed and they haven't really hardened yet. They're kind of like rubber. You ever try to break a rubber band by throwing it on the floor? It doesn't really work.
And this is why the hospital contacted CPS and the police. Was because it was a violent enough injury of a broken arm situation. I mean, my 8-year-old fell out of a tree. She chipped her bone. She fell out of a tree, and she hit a root, and she chipped a bone. This kid's 3-year-old, his arm is broken, and it was violent enough for CPS and the police to get involved because the hospital got involved with it. I mean, we're talking 2 instances inside 6 weeks. I mean, the CPS had already investigated this situation. Or a situation that was close to it, with Hill's name being a person of interest. So there's something there.
Oh, yeah, no doubt at all. And I tell you what, if he doesn't play another down, I can't tell you, I don't believe I'll be shedding a whole lot of tears.
I definitely would not be shedding tears. That is for sure. I actually don't think he deserves to play again.
Yeah. He shouldn't, honestly.
And speaking of draft picks, I believe they took a guy in round 2, Malcolm Hardman.
Mecole Hardman.
Mecole Hardman from Georgia. Yep. So I think they're ready to move on. Maybe he's one of these June 1st cuts or something that the NFL has made popular now. I think they're just biding their time, and maybe it's a financial thing for the team. Hey, if you cut him before this date, it'll cost you this, that against the cap. Who knows the inner workings and the language involved with these contracts? But I'm pretty sure they're looking for the day they can cut him and they can finally wipe their hands clean of him.
It's not just Mecole Hardman either. It's Darwin Thompson too, the running back from Kansas State that they drafted, because he fits a very similar. He could fit a very similar void that was left there from Kareem Hunt, and then with Tyreek Hill, obviously not going to be there. I mean, Mecole Hardman.
If you're a one-trick pony, you can't play for Andy Reid. We know that. I mean, it's going way back from Ricky Waters and Byron Westbrook. These guys run and catch.
Yep.
Fair enough. And I mean, it's one of those things that if you did this once in college and you got caught for it, and then you almost didn't get drafted because of the fact that a team had to get special permission to draft you, and then you come in and you don't do anything for a year, and then your second year in you get all this stuff now, and you're legitimately trying to say you didn't do this. Then you have audio come out, and then you have this and you have that, and you're now revving up to get charged with something. You've ruined yourself at that point. In your head, if you can't understand the fact that you messed up, not once but twice, but the second time being much, much worse, especially with it being your kid involved, then I don't know how you can let yourself understand that you are not playing in this league anymore.
You hear that, Robert Kraft?
Listen, Aaron Hernandez went to jail.
I was talking about Robbie himself.
Robbie himself, yeah.
Yeah, no, straight up, like, honestly, you that was prostitution, basically. Like, come on.
Yeah,
I agree, guys. I agree.
Yeah, the Chiefs need to just go ahead and cut loose and move on from it, and the NFL just needs to. The NFL, the thing with the domestic situation that makes me angry the most about this is, like Kareem Hunt's video came out, and in grand scheme of what Kareem Hunt did, it wasn't, oh my God, he beat the living hell out of her or anything like that,
There was a lot more behind it with multiple different people.
Right, but the fact of the matter is a couple years ago, the NFL came out after Greg Hardy got arrested with beating his girlfriend up with the guns all on the bed and all that stuff, and they came out and said zero tolerance. And then the Josh Brown, the kicker, came out where he had a detailed journal of all the times that he, abused his wife or, supposedly, had interactions of abusing his wife on multiple instances. And, those guys got blackballed from the league. And you came out and verbally stated in a public setting that you're taking a zero tolerance policy on domestic abuse cases. And then Kareem Hunt comes back into the NFL. And then the Tyreek Hill situation now. This is a time in a pivotal moment for the NFL where they're losing fans, for multiple reasons. Some of them are being the domestic side of it, and some of it being from, obviously, we know the Kaepernick situation. This gives an opportunity, a chance for the NFL to take a stand and say, we take this stand and say no. We are not allowing this ever again.
Well, okay, but if you do that, then that's a rabbit hole, because I just mentioned Mr. Robert Kraft's name. Okay, so all right, maybe we want to say, yeah, well, he was only in a massage parlor, and who wouldn't want a little bit of Sally on the side and happy ending or whatever? But the thing is, it's illegal, right? A solicitation is solicitation. Yeah, sure, he didn't Wayne Brady,
And Kraft will be punished. Kraft will be punished for it.
Okay.
The NFL has already said that he will be punished for it.
It would be hard for the league to say no more. We're taking a stand, putting our foot down. We've had enough of this. We're ready to turn a new leaf. With now the most popular owner, who keeps winning all the Lombardi trophies, is now right on the same level. Players.
That's different.
It's a little different.
It's different because why?
Well, because you have to take the time of getting a new owner. They have to transition out. You have to change dynamics. That's a whole organization changing on a whim. You just can't throw someone out.
But it's not outside the realm of the possibility, though, John or Kevin, that you could see it. I mean, we just saw it with Jerry Richardson down in Carolina.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
but that was
it's
still
not outside,
a little bit.
Right, but it's still not outside the realm of the possibility, is what I'm saying. I mean, even with the Robert Kraft situation. But as far as the domestic abuse is concerned, strictly, in just the sense of making it black and white with domestic abuse, as far as that side is concerned, they can take a stand with this situation and say, enough is enough. Because Greg Hardy, Ray Rice was 26 years old. He's only a year older than Tyreek Hill when the whole situation happened. He was going into his 27th year. It's not like this guy was like 33 and on the decline of a wear and tear type of situation. Teams were looking at Ray Rice, and they were going to sign Ray Rice after he was released by Baltimore. But then they got the better thinking of it. Well, the video came out. Let's not do that, because this video is pretty bad. But you're going to say it's okay and going to keep Tyreek Hill on payroll, and he broke a 3-year-old's arm. And again, they're all on the same platform, but where's that line drawn? This gives the NFL a chance and an opportunity to say, Kareem Hunt gets a second chance. Maybe we shouldn't have let that happen. Let's stick with Tyreek Hill and say, enough is enough.
Well, okay, see, we keep bringing up the Kareem Hunt incident. Yes, it was bad.
He put his hands on a woman. I understand.
It wasn't just him, though. It was him and his girlfriend, wife, whatever. because they were throwing racial slurs at
I understand there was racial slurs involved. I get that. I 100% understand that. And I'm not saying that the person the woman that was involved in that video was right, and I'm not condoning that. But you're a football player, you're an athlete. It's like being a celebrity. You're put into the public limelight. You no longer have privacy. It just does not happen. You have to act and be a certain type of way. That's why there's a code of conduct policy in the NFL. The NFL can't come out and say zero tolerance except in this situation. It's either you're zero tolerance or you're not. And I'm not saying that Kareem Hunt didn't deserve a second chance. I'm just saying that Kareem Hunt doesn't deserve a second chance if it's truly zero tolerance. He got his second chance. Now it's time for the NFL to say, okay, enough is enough, because this Tyreek Hill situation has gotten to the point where it's now involving a kid. And you can't just say, zero tolerance, except, because that just makes a joke for who you are.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time.
Zero tolerance.
It wouldn't be the first time the NFL displayed a double standard.
Well, of course not, and I get that, and I understand that, but I'm just saying, with you losing viewerships, and make no mistake about it, there was a lot of people that were very happy that the AAF was starting, so they didn't have to watch the NFL again. Just like these people are going to be super excited that the XFL starting, so they don't have to watch the NFL again for whatever reason it may be. If you're going to be the NFL and you're going to sit here and talk about this in a certain situation, and you're going to come out and publicly state zero tolerance, then either be zero tolerance or don't come out and publicly say that you are.
Well, I tell you, I got into this. I don't know if you guys saw some of this, but we got into a pretty long, I don't want to say heated discussion, but, I said, hey, well, how about we start holding some of these organizations, these franchises accountable for some of the actions of the guys that they put on their team? If you're going to hire a knucklehead, and he's going to do knucklehead stuff, like, look, I bet you I could stand up on a chair here in my house and hold up Pac-Man Jones's record, and the thing would probably roll out and hit the floor like a scroll to the king. Okay. So at what point do we, take a look at the team and be like, dude, you're still employing this guy. We're docking you a second, third, fourth round, first round pick. You know what I mean? I mean, we've seen that happen once or twice for, as a penalty for things, that have gone down. Patriots got hit once or twice, I believe. And, I can't even really think of another team that got hit, in that fashion. But, perhaps it'll be a zero tolerance. What I was thinking in my mind when you kept saying the word zero tolerance is, okay, where does zero start? But hey, maybe it's time to start putting a penalty with a fine out there. Because remember when Jerry Jones talked about revenue sharing being on its way out, and how he looked at it as, the wealthiest form of welfare known to man, and all that. He was tired of carrying half the teams in the league, with all the sales that his organization puts out there, and basically feeds half the owners. He did have a point, but the NFL don't like these owners talking like that, and they penalized him big time. Give him like more than $1 million fine for that, So maybe it has to be something similar. You hit one of these owners in the wallet, okay, and take a draft pick away, and that not only hurts the general manager and the coach, and we all know it's a win now league, okay, but you start hitting them owners in the wallet, they might start making adjustments.
I mean, I believe that would happen, but think about it. What kind of fine are we talking about? Because this has to be a pretty hefty fine for these owners to even care.
Now fine them. In one entire game worth of income.
Because that's the big question. Because they get fined and it's a small fine, they're going to be like, oh.
And you just paid for the production of that game one, all your players' salaries, and all the concessions and merchandise for week one. You just paid that out of pocket. You will get nothing in return. Thanks for calling.
Oh, if they're gonna do salaries and concessions and stuff, yeah, I'm pretty sure that owner would be broke.
Well, I tell you, he'd be broke 1 out of 17 for the year. So they'd start thinking twice about how many times they'd like to invite said star player who's a knucklehead on their boat or out to the country club golf course so he can show him off in front of all of his wealthy buddies. Hit him in the wallet real hard one time and see what happens.
Well, I think that you just see it in general. I mean, any type of fine that's steep, draft picks, anything that could hurt a team, that could end up hurting attendance or end up hurting the bottom line would be good as far as that's concerned. I don't know what else more I could say in this situation, but
I get hit by the speed cameras here in the DC area, and I start hitting the brakes more often. Okay, that's what I'm saying. You hit me in the wallet, I start obeying the rule a little bit better.
I mean, that's fair, but it with like the likes of Robert Kraft, like getting what he got down in Florida, getting caught like that, and the NFL stating that they're going to do something. If the Kraft family gets taken out of ownership of the New England Patriots, I think it's like, okay, we saw everything happen with the Carolina Panthers, and now like Steph Curry has a percentage of stock in that organization now. You're looking at a franchise with Tom Brady still there, a franchise that's won Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl the past 20 years, and they have to go into the fact that if Kraft leaves, they got to watch how it happens, because you got 2,000 people that are probably going to be like, oh, this organization's going to keep winning. Screw the owner, whoever's going to come in. I want a piece of stock. This organization, like, if Robert Kraft gets kicked out, okay. It would be months before we actually see him booted.
Yeah, it would definitely be a process, especially considering the Patriots are number 2 on the list of franchises and how much they actually are and all that stuff. Like it would obviously take a long haul, and it's a long shot that Robert Kraft would ever be replaced by any means. I understand that. I just think that the overall aspect of when it comes to the player side of it, something needs to be done. Yes. When it comes to the owner side, they have to set a different precedence, because obviously, I mean, they forced Jerry Richardson out, in Carolina. They obviously have a means to handle it when it comes to owners and other aspects, but the player side is the side that I look at more than anything, because the players are the ones that make the money for these teams, for these organizations, for these owners. But at the same time, they're also the face of the franchise. Everybody knows who Robert Kraft is, but nobody would have known who Robert Kraft was if Tom Brady and Belichick don't start winning.
Exactly.
So it's not like Robert Kraft was the face of the franchise and then Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, happened to come along. It was quite the opposite. Like, I don't even think anybody could even tell you who the Kansas City Chiefs owner is or what he looks like. I mean, I know who it is just because I, follow the NFL inside and out, but I don't think the average Joe could point out who the Kansas City Chiefs owner is. But I bet you if they see Andy Reid, if they saw Tyreek Hill last year before this all came to light, I guarantee they would know who those two guys are.
Yeah.
So the players it's the players that need to have this sort of precedence be set by the NFL, because they're the most recognizable stars, especially when you're a star. I don't think Patrick Mahomes can walk down a street in Kansas City or St. Louis right now and not get mauled by millions of people. I mean, they all know who he is, and they're probably throwing ketchup packets at him along the way. So the players need to have this precedence in set, and the NFL needs to take a stand, and this needs to be the situation. It's unfortunate because the NFL loves to react. They don't like to be proactive. I don't know if anybody knows this, but a lot of their rules and policies in place are all reactionary. They're never preemptive. It's always reactionary.
Well, which leads us to how do you move from a reactionary to a more, a law, circumstance?
It has to start with Roger Goodell. Like, he's gone on this mission of trying to change left, right, and sideways the NFL. But in doing so, it's the reason why he's being booed when he walks across that draft stage. He's done good things and bad things, but he's done mostly bad because the organization of the NFL itself has taken so much heat because him and the chairmen and CEOs could just not get anything right. When it comes down to players and abuse and drugs and everything, it just doesn't work out right. And that's not including any of the field changes, what they do with penalties and stuff. But when we look at Josh Gordon, he's gotten multiple different opportunities. And this last one with the Patriots, it's being said that he can return because he admitted that he broke the contract, but that he was going to rehabilitation. Granted, is it still bad that he broke the contract? Yes, but he stated as he was like, I'm not going to play this week. The reason being is because I broke contract, but I'm going into rehab, and I hope to go play again one day. I think he'll be too old. He will never be at what he was with the Browns. So Josh is out, honestly. But
I think he returns. I don't know how effective he'll be, and I don't know if he'll return this year.
Right.
The guy's had multiple opportunities and chances, but when you're talking drug-related offenses, it's a little bit different because, I mean, most of his has been marijuana. I mean, he got suspended in Cleveland for a year because he had a sip of wine after a victory with the Cleveland's coaching staff. I mean, because it was part of his contract that he couldn't drink alcohol. It's small stuff like that. Like, we don't know everything behind the scenes, but, you know, Josh Gordon, you know, uses, you know, medical marijuana to help with his, you know, mental illnesses. You know, it's to help cope with his mental illnesses and whatever else. It may not be the most effective method, but it might be the most effective method for him. But as an NFL player, it may not be the most effective method that he could have come up with. But the thing that aggravates me the most in this situation is, I don't know if you watched Week 1 last year with the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears when Aaron Rodgers hurt his knee. But that interview at the end of the game when Aaron Rodgers and the Packers won that game 28-27, Aaron Rodgers was high as a kite.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
You remember the interview? Okay.
He really was.
He was high as a kite in that interview. But that's okay because it's painkillers, but not marijuana. What's the double standard?
No, that didn't look like no painkillers I'm familiar with. That dude looked like he smoked an 8-ball.
What is it like?
That guy looked like he had
cheeseburgers. Honestly,
man.
Vicodin can do that to you. I was on Vicodin for my back. And let me tell you something. I was higher than a mother trucker.
Hey, look, Teddy Roosevelt said once upon a time. Now, this guy used to say some fun stuff, okay? For those of you out there that don't realize, we elected this guy 4 times when you could run more than twice in a row. And he won all 4 times, died very early in the 4th term. But Teddy Roosevelt sat in a wheelchair, and he was known for pontificating on various topics and led this country through a time of war, okay? It was him that coined the phrase, speak softly and carry a big stick. Okay, now one doesn't confuse Teddy Roosevelt as being a guy that had an issue portraying and delivering his authority. All right, but what Teddy Roosevelt was not is that was a guy that was going to beat around the bush and sugarcoat things and dance around topics and have double standards. He spoke softly and he carried a big stick. Perhaps what this league needs to move into the direction of is saying, look, young man, we're going to give you this S show of a rookie symposium to help you try to learn how to act like an adult, because we really hope that when you sign this contract to play in this league, which is the highest level of football that there is known to the galaxy that we're aware of, you are going to potentially make millions of dollars here, depending on how long you play, okay, or even depending on how short you play and where you were drafted. If you want to continue making the NFL money, there's a certain way we would like you to live your life in the eyes of the law as well as public opinion. And if you cannot do that, we will get rid of you swiftly and justly right now. Okay, and I think that's the kind of step that they need to take to move into the direction that might satisfy the court of public opinion. But until they do something like that, I have a feeling that we're just going to spend more time talking about this subject. The next guy up and smacks up his kid and his wife, you know what I mean, and wondering what kind of a penalty, if any at all, the league, and Mr. Goodell is going to lay down. So, speak softly and carry a big stick, guys. That's what I suggest.
Fair. But look, we've been talking about this for a while now. But the one thing that we have been talking about is the marijuana part of it, the drug part of it. Now, the XFL has come out and stated that they're not going to do mandatory marijuana checks. They're not going to test their players for marijuana. Now, the NFL, like we've been saying with Josh Gordon, the NFL has had an issue with this. There's been reports stating that they're looking at possibly doing away with it to where they're not going to worry about it, but they haven't. They've made even stricter rules a part of it. How does the NFL go about transitioning from testing marijuana and focusing on PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs?
2 years ago, I believe it was, after the Josh Gordon suspension with Cleveland, it was a big public outcry, especially in the Cleveland area, that it was made that Josh Gordon uses, marijuana to manage his mental illnesses and everything else. And then obviously with Colorado, the state of Colorado, the state of Washington, amongst several other states since then, my state of Maine has, voted to make marijuana legal, recreational use. They came out and said, we're going to look at this and see if we can make it legal. And then less than a month later, Roger Goodell came out and said that we will never make marijuana legal as far as being able to not test for it. So it was kind of like a contradiction within the matter of 30 days coming out of Goodell's mouth. Honestly, marijuana being tested to me is just the NFL being behind times. I can't imagine that there's enough NFL executives and enough NFL owners who don't smoke a little weed on their own right that don't get tested. So this is a joke at this point in time, if you want my honest opinion. The marijuana offers no competitive advantage. It offers no unfair advantage, to a player or to a team that has multiple players that smoke marijuana. I applaud the XFL on this side of things, and I just hope that the NFL can follow suit at some particular moment in time.
John?
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know what the NFL what their league opinion is on the matter. I think when the league gets together in third week of March or first week of April to do their owners meeting, and then they meet again in mid-June or early July to have their annual meeting, the second run. That's where they decide whether or not they're going to change any rules that they talked about in the first meeting. So for example, like they talked about the whole, can we challenge instant replay, missed pass interference calls and stuff like that with the situation that went down with the Saints and, Tom Brady getting sneezed on. They threw a flag there. Is that challengeable stuff? Late in the fourth quarter, a Tom Brady flag came out, and then boom, can we challenge it next year? But, they talk about it. They meet up twice, right? And I imagine the marijuana thing has come up between the owners over the years, and I just kind of think these are old white guys that don't toke a whole lot. They've never seen a whole lot of Cheech and Chong movies. They don't think very highly of guys that sit around and smoke. These are guys that most of them never earned a great deal of their money. They come from money, and when you come from money, maybe you're not hanging out at all the you're not going to all the 420 fests out there and all this and that and the other. But, you never owned a Cypress Hill album or whatever. But what I can say is, yes, times are a-changing. And there's probably a whole hell of a lot more players that do smoke it than don't. And the more progress we make in the medical field and all that, or every time you turn around, somebody's telling you another use of hemp and, the way you can ingest it that's pretty safe and, and the numbers in comparison to disasters that have occurred with the use of marijuana versus the use of alcohol or other, over-the-counter drugs. But I think until all the states are on board, with the legalization of it, where there are NFL teams and where they do plan on playing NFL games, I think the league has to worry about, them getting tested not by themselves as a league, handing out the tests, but, there's a lot of states that say, hey, if you want to play a game here, we might test you.
I don't even think it's the states necessarily, John, though. I think it might just because it's still against the law federally.
Okay, well then, until the federal government starts being able to tax it, right? I mean, you got to think about this. These owners are billionaires. They're in a high tax bracket. Who do you think helps get a lot of these officials elected? These NFL owners got good influence too, So, hey, man, I don't know. I'm no genius. It's starting to get into politics, which is where I usually bow out, okay? But I will say this, the XFL, I think it's a pretty bold move, a smart move of them. Marijuana, I don't personally smoke it. I could care less whether you do or you don't. When I owned a couple businesses, the only thing that really irked me is that some of the guys, it's like they cared a lot about their pot. Like, guys, it's pot. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, you guys spend an awful lot of energy on this stuff. But hey, to each his own. I've never really met any pothead serial killers just yet. So, guys want to smoke, go for it, man. It's like, just try to leave enough energy to play the game. That's all we're asking, man. But, hey, if the NFL moves in that direction, I think it would be a good move for them. But if they don't, some of them bottom of the roster players are looking real tasty. Moving on over to where they can know that they can make that $250,000 a year and smoke up. Oh man, they're not even going to piss test me. I'm going to the XFL, brah. Peace out, Kraft.
This raises a good question, John. Actually, because guys like Martavius Bryant and Josh Gordon, what's the likelihood of them, possibly if Gordon doesn't get off that suspension list, saying, hey, Oliver Luck, let me come over and play for your Washington, D.C. franchise or your New York franchise. What's going to stop those guys from going over there now?
Well, I tell you what, if the XFL was around 15 years ago, man, Ricky Williams would have jumped right over. He would have been the Herschel Walker of the XFL. I'll tell you that right now, because Ricky wasn't having that. He'd tell you, hey, you know what? You ain't going to let me smoke? I'm sitting out. I will go to Africa and smoke 10,000 pounds, and then y'all can just, let me play the Wildcat next year.
Well, he did that, though. He went to Canada.
Yes, he did. Oh, you don't want to let me smoke a couple joints after North Turner hands me 45 balls in a game? Oh, hell no. I'll go play in the XFL. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And we're looking at go ahead.
You have Josh Gordon and Martavius Bryant. They're suspended and stuff like this. But we've seen how, like, Josh Gordon going to the Patriots or Kareem Hunt going from the Chiefs to the Browns. They have player contracts, and also I believe they have I forget what they are, but within the team and the organization with that contract, they also have a player. I can't think of the name, but they would have, like, if they go to the XFL, I think the XFL would have to buy out the player rights because that team has rights to that player. I don't think they could just go over. I think they would have to go through the Patriots or Browns or
the guy like Martavius Bryant, though, where he's a free agent right now, he wouldn't have to, is what I was getting at.
Oh yeah,
if Josh Gordon hadn't signed that restricted free agent contract, which, by the way, he's still on his rookie contract, as ridiculous as that sounds, because he's literally been in the league for 8 years, but because of all the suspensions, he's still on his rookie contract. If he hadn't signed that RFA, contract with New England, he may, he very may have looked at something like the XFL. And I'll be honest with you, I honestly, if Gordon was to be handed down another year-long suspension, I don't see anything saying that he wouldn't go to the New England's front office and say, can you let me out of my contract so I can go play to the XFL? And I guarantee New England would probably let him out of that contract, because what good is it going to do having him on a contract for suspension for a full year? You're just going to have to re-sign him again next year, and if he lapses again, he's suspended again for another year. Eventually, New England's going to get fed up with it, and I don't think that New England would be the type of team that's going to, landlock a guy just because he might come back before he's 30.
Al Davis would do it.
Well, that's because Al Davis was obviously senile and off his damn rocker by the time he was 12.
He'd have done it when he was in his way. He did it to Marcus Allen. He did it to Tim Brown. He'd do it. And not Tim Brown, Porter. Joey Porter, Jerry Porter.
Joey Porter.
Oh, yeah. Guy from PG County, man. He did it to him. You sit there. I'll pay you to sit there. Just sit there. Hey, I don't know all the ins and outs with the contracts. Once a guy clears waivers, right, if he ain't picked up, you're free to move about the country, right? But, if the NFL isn't taking a real close look at this, they're probably not happy with hearing an announcement like that, just like they're probably not happy with, some of the other things they've been hearing of late, coming out of that league. They're probably looking to combat this swiftly, or maybe not so, maybe quietly and swiftly at the same time. That speak softly, carry the big stick again. Maybe they're starting to take my advice. But I would suggest, if I'm one of these owners bringing this up in one of these early summer meetings that they're going to have and say, hey, what are we going to do about this? We've been talking about this and just kind of tabling it and back burner. We need to talk about this today. Because, yes, they are out, quite a bit of talent. You know what I mean? And if it wasn't for these little infractions, marijuana is a little thing, really, in the grand scheme of things. So what? The guy failed a piss test. He's a great wide receiver. He's a great linebacker, whatever he plays, Remember Fred Davis? Once again, going back to that second round of the Redskins, that guy couldn't stop smoking to save his life. He smoked himself out of football. Hey, the XFL was around. He'd have played for it a decade ago, just like Ricky. So, I do have a feeling that if the XFL also, if they start getting some success, oh boy, they're going to start being able to play, pay their players a little bit more, and even more guys will jump over. So that's why the NFL needs to hurry up and put the kibosh on some of these little, little nonsense they got going on here, and start moving the chips across the table.
I almost wish the XFL would have silently just put that in and not actually announced it, and just kept it between the organization and the teams and the players.
Say it loud, man.
Marijuana
affects your hearing.
But the reason why I say that, though, is because if they had done that and they were able to talk to players quietly about it, without it necessarily going like super public like it did, the NFL now can combat this by saying, well, we no longer test for marijuana, and players are going to pick the NFL over the XFL until the XFL can get contracts that are similar to the NFL. I just wish they hadn't, because then that would have been very interesting to see those guys like Josh Gordon, Martavius Bryant, Antonio Callaways of the world going, I can go play for the XFL, make six figures, and smoke a bunch of weed.
This is what the NFL is going to do. This is what the NFL is going to do. I just had a light bulb moment.
Hold up, John. You smoking right now. Are you high? You sound kind of high.
I'm a Marlboro man. Saddle up and ride off into the Marlboro country. Come to where the flavor is. Welcome to Marlboro country. But, hey, look, this is what the NFL is going to do. They're going to be like, okay, they're not testing, but, I just want to let you rookies know, when you sign your rookie deal, we are going to include 10 pounds of pot, and we're not going to test you. So stick around. Don't go over there to those other guys. That is the big move for the XFL.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, especially with everything the XFL is doing. If they come around year one and do amazingly, then yeah, we're going to have players doing that. But we've been talking a while about it. But if you would like to hear the other side of this conversation, the XFL actually saying they're not going to do tests for marijuana, then check back on Sunday for Alternative Football News Live. We'll be talking about the other side of this. That's going to do it for our show tonight. And also, if you would like to check out our Facebook group for XFL Now, it's a show that will be starting up soon in the summer. It'll cover everything XFL. Check out XFL Access 2020 on Facebook. It's got a bunch of great people on it, and we hope to see you in there. Thank you, everybody. As always, Kevin Drake, Michael Washington Weeks, and John Turner.
The Alternative Football News Network. History in the making.